Namaste and welcome to the Asana Sana Yoga studio. And here we are in a special environment for our yin yoga class. As yin yoga does help with getting us closer to sleep and ready for bed, I thought it would be very nice today to have yin yoga on my couch pulled out as a bed, something that's a little bit more comfortable for me. So this is just also for you if you'd like to access yin yoga in the future and would like to perform it in your bed as well, you most certainly can, even if it's a kind of a standing pose or a kneeling pose, or let's say we get into downward dog, something like that. Being able to do yin yoga in bed is really helpful when you're trying to relax your mind and get yourself ready for sleeping. So, without further ado, let's get started with tonight's Savasana Yoga class here at the studio. As always, let's find ourselves getting here on our mat, finding ourselves seated. Our first asana today, as we will be holding our poses for 3 minutes at a time, our first asana today will be legs on the wall. Now, if you don't have a wall available for you, like I have here, you can go ahead and use a block or a pillow underneath your back. So I'll just show everyone who doesn't have a wall readily available how to get into that. If you have a wall readily available, please go ahead into that wall. So without a wall, just go ahead and lay yourself down. We're going to push up a little bit on the heel, taking your pillow or your block, placing it right underneath your booty here, your lower back, finding a nice comfortable point. From here, you want to extend your arms, placing them flat on the mat. Inhale, let me just turn that down a little bit. Inhale, bring your knees up to your chest, keeping them parallel to the floor. The lower legs parallel to the floor. Exhale, extending your legs all the way up to the sky here. Holding them legs up the wall. Breathing here, we're just going to hold here for 3 minutes. And we'll do a body check and I'll find myself switching. So. I gotta say, it is really nice doing this on a bed. If your bed might be too soft or you feel like it's not quite the right bed for this, please remove the block and find yourself just keeping your legs up. Or maybe if you're laying on the floor, you can put your legs over your bed. So, doing good. We're about 30 seconds in. Wonderful. Keep your poses. I'm just going to place my legs up the wall. With about another minute and a half to go here. And you can do legs up the wall anytime. You really don't need to do them in any specific yoga class. This is an excellent pose for the end of the day. I like to do it when I am dealing with a little bit of swelling of my legs, if I've been traveling a lot, walking around, that's when I like to do it. Excellent. Keep holding on, everyone. We have about 30 seconds to go. Let's take our last breaths in this pose. And if you're in supported legs up the wall, go ahead and bring your knees into your chest again, bending your knees, exhaling the feet flat to your mat, to the floor behind you. Remove your block, coming down. And if you had your legs up against the wall, please find yourself into a flat part of your mat or of your bed, wherever you may be seated. Excellent. Let's find ourselves here in our next pose. Extend the arms out long. I'm going to move the blocks out of the way so you guys can see me. Inhale those arms right up overhead. And you can go ahead and either clasp them together in prayer pose, or you can keep them as if Charlie's Angel's fingers here. We're just going to take an inhale, exhale, dropping it over to the right side, bringing the feet over to the right as well, crossing the left over the right. Let's exhale into this pose, holding here, breathing into our banana laterals. Hold here for 3 minutes. This is so much nicer for me on a mat or on a bed. Oh my goodness. I highly encourage everyone to try. And we have about a minute and a half to go. Let's body check in this pose. Are our shoulders down from our ears? Have we found the flatness of our lower back on the mat? Are we keeping our left hip pinned to the mat? Even though we may be holding these poses for long periods of time, you do want to make sure you do have the proper alignment. Make sure we're keeping our head properly aligned by using the occipital bone, the pointy part, the rounded part that protrudes from the back of your head, on the mat. You're doing great. You have another minute to go. Just about. Wonderful. Let's take our last breath in this pose. And after that exhale, let's inhale, bringing ourselves to center here, straightening out those feet. Let's exhale ourselves over to the left, crossing the right over top of the left here, coming into our banana lateral to the left, holding here for 3 minutes. And pardon me while I reach for the clock. Holding your banana laterals. Keep yourself in your position. Excellent. Great. Don't mind me, just adjusting technology. And now as we're rounding out our first minute and a half in this pose, let's just do a body check. Are your shoulders down from your ears? Is your head placed on your occipital bone? Are we keeping the curve of the pelvis, keeping our lower back flat to the mat? Is there any pain points in the body? Maybe we need to readjust the pose. Maybe not quite so much as banana lateral. Maybe you need to bend a little more. Keep holding here in your banana lateral of choice. You have another minute and a half to go. Let's take our last breath in this pose. After our last exhale, let's inhale, bringing our hands and head to center, unhooking our right foot from our left, releasing the hands. Excellent. Let's find ourselves coming up to seated. And for this, you may need a block or a pillow or blankets and a bolster. Or a bolster, whatever works for you. But we're going to just come here, get ourselves extended. I'm going to sit myself back against my couch because that's really comfortable. But I'm going to show you what I'm doing from the side here. We're just going to extend our legs out in front of us, grabbing a pillow, a block, blankets, whatever you have, whatever have you. We're just going to extend ourselves, coming forward, dropping our head down onto our block into caterpillar pose. To keep this firmly in the realm of yin, only use a block. If you would like to use a bolster, please go ahead and make that substitution. So from here, let's find ourselves extended. Our feet, let's keep them engaged here. Not too actively engaged, but keep them engaged enough. Let's inhale the hands up. I'm going to actually grab a bolster under the knees. Oh my gosh. Exhale, let's drop our head forward, placing our head on our block here. Sitting, relaxing the hands, letting them open. Bending from the waist. You really want to make sure you're bending from the waist here. Coming forward, relaxing into our caterpillar pose. Actually going to remove this. Go ahead and breathe here. Let's hold this for 3 minutes. And while it may be tempting if you have a few body image issues to stare at your thighs in this pose, I really encourage you to just close your eyes and relax. Focus on your breathing. If you have a hard time meditating, maybe use the time in each of these poses to meditate. Quiet the mind. You only have to be just here. We have about 1.5 minutes to go in this pose. Let's check in on our body. Are we bending from the waist? Are our shoulders down? Is there any pain in the neck? Maybe readjust, maybe add another block. Change the position, maybe pop your knees a little bit if you're feeling a little bit out in the legs. Just a quick body check if you have another 1.5 minutes in this position. Excellent. Let's begin to take our last breaths in this pose here. Let's find ourselves coming into tabletop. Just briefly turning around so I can see you all. Find yourselves here in tabletop pose. Let's make sure our alignment is settled as we keep our knees hip width apart, keeping our legs parallel to the side of the mat, our hips over the knees. We're going to extend our arms out just a little bit here as we take a deep inhale. Let's exhale, dropping the chest, coming into melted heart pose. And you may rest your chin on a block if you'd like, if you have one, or you may rest your head on the block here, or you may rest your head completely on the mat. It is up to you, but let's hold this pose here, breathing. Hold here for 3 minutes. I'll rest my chest. We're about a minute into this pose. Let's do a body check here. Would you like to place your head on a block, your chin on a block, maybe your chest? Are you breathing fully into your belly, letting your hips soften as we arch the back, settling into puppy pose? Are your arms extended but your shoulders down from your ear? Make any adjustments that you may need as we settle into this pose. We have another minute and 30 seconds to go. Excellent. Let's take our last breath in this pose. And after our last exhale, let's inhale ourselves, finding ourselves back in that tabletop position. Remove any props that you may have been using. Let's find ourselves coming to seated here. And we can face each other. You can face the mat, whichever way you like. But let's find our feet coming into Baddha Konasana. And we're going to come into our supported Baddha Konasana, which is where you rest your head on your block here, using the block supported by your feet. Or if you are not quite as flexible, you can support it here and balance on your chest as you lean forward. So let's find our block where we'd like to have it. Get ourselves nice and adjusted, spreading the flesh of the sits bones to the side. You can even bring your hips in a little closer if you're a little bit more flexible than I. Totally cool. So find yourselves comfortable in your Baddha Konasana. Let's inhale those hands up to the sky. Exhale, drawing ourselves forward, bending from the waist. Adjusting as necessary to find our head meeting our block. Some of you may be even flexible enough to get your head all the way down to your feet. That is awesome. I'm not quite there yet, but let's find ourselves on our block, keeping our shoulders down from our ears, pushing our feet out a little bit more forward if we're not finding the flex. But let's relax here, holding this pose for 3 minutes. Just breathing deeply into our supported Baddha Konasana. And we're about a minute and a half in this. We're about halfway through. Let's do a body check. Are your shoulders down from your ears? Are you feeling any discomfort in your hips? If you are, even though you've pushed your legs out a little further, maybe opening them out would be helpful for you. Perhaps readjusting the body the way that you see fit might be doing it. So if you need to make any of those changes, go right ahead. And we have another minute and a half to go. Let's take our last breath in this pose. And after our exhale, let's inhale ourselves, bending from the waist, coming back into seated. Let's keep our legs in this butterfly pose here, but let's extend the left leg out, bringing the right leg inside. We're going to come into our half butterfly, taking our block, placing it on the knee. We're going to come into another forward fold, stretching out the hips, opening up the hips. This is very much a hip opening pose, so you might have some vivid dreaming tonight for this new moon. I love it. So let's exhale, bringing up our chest nice and high. I'm going to prompt a little bit differently this time. Let's exhale, just bending straight from the hip. Just the hip, not using the chest, not using the shoulders, using the hip. Dropping our head down onto our block. Really focusing on keeping our shoulders down here. Let's exhale, holding ourselves in this pose, breathing for 3 minutes. And let's go ahead and do our body checks as we always do, checking to make sure our shoulders are down from our ears. Our foot is slightly engaged, maybe readjusting, having the leg come a little bit closer to medium or maybe a little further out if you want to test your flexibility, turning a little bit more towards the left side if that works for you in your practice this evening. Let's exhale, getting back into position, holding this pose for another minute actually. Make sure we keep our knee on that active leg engaged, turning out, toes facing the same direction. Popping the knee if necessary. I also often forget to remind you all of that. Let's take our last breaths in this pose. And after our last exhale, let's remove our block, finding ourselves coming up to seated. We're going to come into our sleeping swan or our king pigeon pose. So what you would like to do is you just want to, if you can, and it's in your practice, place your hands turning towards the right side here. Placing the hands on the mat, let's lean forward towards that bent knee, sliding the left leg to the back. Adjusting your knee as necessary. You may be able to get yours completely parallel to the front of the mat, but you don't need to. What you need to do is focus on keeping your hips squared forward so that when we come down into our sleeping swan, we are properly aligned and not twisting anything out of alignment. So keep that leg, that back extended leg parallel to the side of the mat. You can find a block if you'd like. I'm going to move my pillow out of the way. I'm going to find a block here. You can place that down on the chest or place it under your head. We're going to come down into the sleeping swan. You may also place the block under your back hip here. But let's exhale ourselves down onto this block, coming into sleeping swan, holding it here. 3 whole minutes. You can even stack fist over fist if you'd like. Let me move these pillows out of the way. So you can just place your head here if you don't have a block, whatever works for you. Holding here. I love this pose. It's so wonderful. Go ahead and grab this out of the way. There we go. And we're about a minute and a half into this pose. Let's do a quick body check. Are our hips still square to the mat? If they aren't, or you're not sure, you can complete this by pulling back that right hip and pushing forward the left hip. So we're doing this. You'll feel yourself square up. Make sure that leg that's extended behind you is straight and parallel to the long edge of your mat. Keep your shoulders down from your ears. However, you're sitting on your prop. Maybe you need to slide something underneath your hip to continue into this pose, but make any necessary adjustments to go. We have a minute and a half. You guys are doing wonderful. And let's find ourselves taking our last breath in this pose. And after our last exhale, let's inhale, bring our hands to the mat. Exhale, pushing ourselves up, adjusting your legs, maybe rolling back to sit as we adjust our legs once more. We're going to come back into our half butterfly pose here. So this time we're going to keep our right leg extended as we bring our left leg, the sole of the foot, into the thigh here. And don't mind me, I'm just keeping an eye on the clock. Let's find ourselves getting adjusted, moving the flesh from the sits bones so we can be nice and properly adjusted. And you might find that you're a little bit either tighter on this side or a little looser. No worries. Just go ahead and adjust as needed. I'm probably going to roll up a blanket underneath my knee to keep that supported and then placing a block here. So however you like to get in, go ahead and get yourself into your half butterfly. Finding the block onto the knee as always, bending from the waist, keeping the ears, the shoulders from the ears, using our whole torso. So we're going to inhale the hands up, turning towards the extended leg, exhaling, coming forward from the hip, placing your block down, coming into this beautiful half butterfly. We have another minute and a half to go in this pose. Let's do a body check. Our ears down from our shoulder, or shoulders down from our ears. Are our hips squared? Our shoulders squared towards the knee? Are we having any discomfort anywhere? Do we need to adjust? Are we bending from the hip? Are we not rolling the shoulders forward? Make sure to check in on that. Have about another minute and a half to go. Let's take our last breath in this pose. As our last exhale, let's inhale, bringing the arms, extending them forward, using the momentum to sit up. Exhale, let's drop our arms to the side here. And let's come to our sleeping swan on the left side. So keeping ourselves in this position that we're already in, let's do the same thing we did before. If you can turn your leg to the back, bringing your hips forward, keeping that back extended leg parallel, dropping down into your sleeping swan. And again, since it's the other side, you may find that you're either a little looser or a little tighter on this side. No worries. Grab yourself your block or your blanket and help adjust yourself. Let's get down into our sleeping swan here. Once we've figured out our comfortable position, keeping those hips square to the mat. Remember, we're going to pull forward the right this time and push back the left. So it's this way, like that. So keeping the hips nice and square, settling into that sleeping swan. Excellent, doing it. Don't remember not to drop and droop forward. We want to keep ourselves, our shoulders back from our ears here. When we're laying forward, we want to lay almost chest first to keep the spine extended so we're not dropping in our back. Doing good. I'm going to sit up just a little bit here. I like to do mine this way. Excellent. Everyone, keep in your pose. We're about halfway through. Check your positioning once more, seeing if your shoulders are down. Maybe you want to try a different sleeping swan. I'm up on my forearms now. Completely up to you. Another minute and a half to go. Keep breathing into this pose. Concentrate on focusing on your breath. Excellent. Let's take our last breath in this pose. And let's inhale, finding our way up just like before. Removing our plots. Let's exhale, coming down onto seated, onto our sits bones here. And we're going to come into our Supta Baddha Konasana, which is reclined butterfly pose. So super simple. Finding ourselves here on the mat. You can go ahead and use a pillow if you have one, or if you have your blocks, we're going to find one at a T directly against our lower back. And then we're going to make another one here, standing up on the long side at the top, placing that down, and we're just going to gently drape ourselves here, finding this back one, using it to support the head. And as I am on a bed, it's a little bit difficult for me to use a block. Here we go. Finding ourselves open, keeping our feet in the butterfly pose here. Let's take an exhale, allowing our chest to open, allowing our back to be supported here in the Supta Baddha Konasana. Let's hold here for 3 minutes. And of course, if you have a pillow, you may drape yourself on that. You may also remove the block here. Drape yourself a little bit further down. Coming into a Supta Baddha Konasana that way. I might actually do it that way. It's a little difficult for me to be on a bed and do that, but it works out. Excellent. We're about halfway through, so do a body check. See if you need to adjust, if you want to change your Baddha Konasana as I did. I'm resting on a block here that is completely flat. You may keep yours up, draping your back over it, getting a little bit more of an arch extension. It's a little bit difficult for me to do it this way as I am on a pull-out bed, so there's a seam right down the middle where I'm at. But where you are might work for you. So get right back into your position. About another minute and a half to go. Let's take our last breath in this pose. As we exhale, let's find our legs extending forward, straightening out. Let's remove the props from underneath our back here. Actually, let's roll gently to one side. Either side doesn't matter. Rolling off of the props is a little easier. Removing the props from behind the back. Let's find ourselves pushing our way back up into seated here. Let's come into our next pose as we turn to face each other here. Sorry, my window's open. It's just a lovely day out here. I'm in Southern California. Wherever you are, I hope it's as sunny and beautiful as it is here today. Excellent. Let's find ourselves in seating. Let's remove the flesh of the sits bones as we're in easy seat here. We're going to come into our fire log pose, or you can do a baby cradle. For fire log, let's find our right foot on that knee. Let's take our block here underneath our knee on the right side, right on top of the foot for the left. So we're going to hold our feet into a fire log. You just want to stack them, keeping them as parallel as possible. I see here I've got a little bend in my ankle, but flexibility is getting there. If this pose is too much for you, you may hold yourself in a baby cradle pose, just bringing the right foot into the left elbow and then the right knee into the right elbow, holding ourselves here. However you'd like to take your pose, let's find ourselves getting situated. I'm going to hold a fire log pose. Getting myself nice and prepared. Let's inhale the hands up. Exhale, just reaching down, letting them rest. Finding yourselves rested in this pose here. I'm going to find my back, rolling the shoulders up and down, keeping the ribs over the pelvic bones. Remember, we want to keep that good alignment even though we are sitting in a yin pose. So keeping that good alignment, keeping the chest lifted, keeping the ears over the shoulders. Let's settle down into our fire log pose or baby cradle pose. And you may drift your eyes shut if you'd like, focusing on your breath, using this time to meditate. Keeping your hands on the mat here. And I'll keep an eye on the time. We're about halfway through this pose. Let's find ourselves checking in on our body here. Did we let our head droop forward? Let's see that our ears are back over those shoulders, keeping our chest nice and strong, shoulders up and back, but keeping the rib points over the hip bones. Maybe if you are in a baby cradle pose, you'd like to try fire log or vice versa, go right ahead. We have another minute and a half to go. Excellent. Let's find our last breath in this pose. And with our exhale, let's remove our props, gently guiding the leg back down to the mat. Let's extend the legs out in front of us and just give them a quick wiggle. Just a quick wiggle. Wonderful. Let's find our right leg this time on the bottom, our left leg on the top, and however we'd like to come into, if you're doing fire leg log pose or if you're doing baby cradle. If you're doing fire log, place the block on the right foot, bringing the knee over the foot here, helping the ankle onto the right knee, the left ankle, coming into that pose. If you're coming into baby cradle, again, taking the left foot into the right elbow, the left knee into the left elbow. So let's get situated in our pose here. Readjusting as necessary. Finding ourselves here in our pose, relaxing into our pose of choice, fire log or cradle pose. Holding here for 3 minutes. And we are about halfway in this pose. Find yourself readjusting if necessary. If you'd like to try the opposite pose, if you've done fire log and want to try and cradle leg, if you want to try cradle, or if you've been cradling but want to try fire log, let's go ahead and get into those. Adjusting our legs if you'd like to. Deep breath. And if you want to stay in the position you are, go right ahead. We still have a minute and a half to go. So just hold your positioning, relaxing into the pose of choice. Let's take our last breath in this pose. And after our exhale, let's just remove the blocks that we have supporting us. Extending the legs out in front of us. Just go ahead and give them a little wiggle. All right, slowing ourselves down to stillness. Let's find ourselves laying down back on the mat here. This is our last pose before we get into Shavasana, so it will be a short one. And there will be options for Shavasana at the end. Let's find ourselves coming to laying on the mat here. Let's keep those knees bent. What we're going to do is we're just going to take an inhale and we're going to drop our knees over to the right, coming into that laying twisted pose, keeping the knees together. Keep the knees parallel to the mat here, holding ourselves, extending your arm if you can, maybe dropping your head over. Let's hold here for a few breaths. This helps counter the pose of holding it while we were doing our fire log and our baby cradle pose. We just want to realign the hips, making sure everything is in the right spot. Holding here. And we're not going to hold this position as long as 3 minutes. Definitely not to this evening. Maybe in another digestive flow for yin. We're just going to hold here long enough to readjust those hips. Let's take one more breath in this pose. Let's take a new inhale as we bring the knees to the top here. Let's exhale ourselves over to the other side. Oh, if you're lucky, you might get a pop in your knee or in your back there. Keeping the knees parallel to the mat. Go ahead and realign those hips. Remember to keep those shoulders pinned down to the mat. You can turn your head to get into a twist if you like. But just holding ourselves here just for a moment. Ooh, making me sleepy. Keep holding here as we readjust those hips. And let's inhale, bringing those knees up to center here. Having our knees down the mat. Exhaling just for a moment. Let's bring our right ankle onto our left knee and inhale, bringing that left knee to the chest. Exhale, catching behind the leg, coming into that full reclined pigeon pose. Let's just hold here for a few moments. Further helping to reset the hip. We did quite a few hip openers today. Keep that extended leg. You can flex it or keep it pointed or let it relax, but keep it parallel to the mat and to the floor. Just releasing our piriformis and working ourselves up for bed. Let's exhale the left foot down to the mat, bringing the right foot back to the mat as well. Let's switch places, placing the left ankle on the right knee. Inhale, bringing that knee up, coming into that figure four here. Now this time we're stretching out the left side. Just remember to keep that extended leg parallel to the floor, but you may have your foot either relaxed or flexed. Keeping our lower back on the mat, extending our whole spine actually to the mat as well. That's why we want to put the occipital bone on there, dropping the chin to the chest. Holding here for a few more moments. Let's take an exhale as we release. This time, let's bring both of our knees into our chest, holding it like a cannonball. Slowly but surely roll ourselves back and forth, just massaging the back on the mat a little bit here. Maybe rotate your knees around with your arms, not so much to throw you off or to make you fall, but we just want to roll around here, maybe roll around the other direction, spreading the good energy we built up from class all around our body, getting ourselves ready for bedtime. Excellent. Let's find ourselves coming to stillness, and let's exhale, sending the arms and legs out as into our traditional Savasana if you'd like. However, if you have props this evening, go ahead and find yourself using them. I'm going to use a pillow or a blanket, no, actually a pillow, underneath my knees. And I'm going to have a blanket, a weighted blanket here, over my hips, keeping my legs open as I drop my head back, coming into our Shavasana. I'm going to go ahead and prop my head on the wall. I might even use a block here to keep myself up, but let's find ourselves relaxing in our Shavasana of choice. Finding ourselves coming into this wonderfully restful position. Let's inhale through the nose, out through the mouth, dropping our legs and feet open wide, fluttering our eyes shut if we haven't already. Coming into this restful asana. Letting your eyes flutter shut. And don't worry about the clock. I will keep an eye on the time. You relax. And before we come up for our Shavasana this evening, I'd like to read for you a passage from the Daily Stoic. And this month, we are covering unbiased thought as the topic. This reading is entitled The Cost of Accepting Counterfeits, and it reads, when it comes to money, where we feel our clear interest, we have an entire art where the tester uses many means to discover the worth. Just as we give great attention to judging things that might steer us badly. But when it comes to our own ruling principle, we yawn and doze off, accepting any appearance that flashes by without counting the costs. Apetitious. When coins were much more rudimentary, people had to spend a lot of time testing them to confirm the currency they just received was genuine. The Greek word dokimaizin means to assay or check the quality of a mineral ore. Merchants were often skilled enough that they could test coinage by throwing it against a hard surface and listening to the note it rang. Even today, though, if someone were to hand you a $100 bill, you might rub it between your fingers or hold it up to the light just to confirm it wasn't a fake. All of this for an imaginary currency, an invention of society. The point of this metaphor is to highlight how much effort we put into making sure money is real, whereas we accept potentially life-changing thoughts or assumptions without so much as a question. One ironic assumption along these lines, that having a lot of money makes you wealthy, or because that a lot of people believe something, it must be true. Really, we should be testing these notions as vigilantly as a money changer, for as Epictetus reminds us, the first and greatest task of the philosopher is to test and separate appearances, and to act on nothing that is untested. Excellent food for thought. And with that, I'd like you to invite a little movement into your body by wiggling your fingers and wiggling your legs, wiggling your arms. Let's find our way up to seated here, meeting in prayer pose. Hands up overhead. Thank you very much for joining me in class this evening. And if you liked our Yin Yoga Shavasana Yoga class, please come back here next Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we'll all get ready for bed by releasing the stresses of the day. And as always, I'd like to send you out by saying, be the light that you wish to see in the world. See the light that you wish to see in the world, because every one of us has got a little light under the sun. Have a great evening, everyone. Sleep well tonight. I will see you all next Thursday. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Have a great night, guys. Good night.